My name is Lena Marsh. I'm 32 years old. Until 7 months ago, I believed that betrayal would arrive like a thunderstorm, loud, messy, something you could point to and say, there. A slammed door, a shouted accusation, a moment of chaos. That was the kind of betrayal I thought existed. I was wrong, because the worst kind doesn't announce itself. It doesn't raise its voice. It doesn't even look guilty. It slips into your life quietly, with a smile, a coffee cup in hand, asking about your day, and somehow rewrites everything you thought you knew. For 6 years, I believed I was the smart one in my marriage, the interesting one, the one with instinct and spark, the ability to read a room, to make life vibrant. My husband, Garrett Marsh, 35, civil engineer, methodical, precise, patient, the kind of man who reads instruction manuals, keeps meticulous spreadsheets, and never raises his voice. I called him boring, stupid, filing cabinet. And I wanted more. I wanted excitement. I wanted unpredictability. That's when Ren Marsh, Garrett's younger brother, slid into the spaces I was trying to fill. 31, charming in ways Garrett never was, careless with money, messy, unreliable. I told myself it didn't matter. 4 months, not serious, just something thrilling. But we both knew it wasn't innocent. The plan began on a Tuesday afternoon. I opened my calendar, shifted appointments, plotted. Garrett and I, Ren and friends Petra and Dom, would go to our lake house for the weekend. A simple trip, nothing unusual. And yet, everything was deliberate. Because I wanted him gone. I wanted the chance to feel alive in a way I hadn't for years. I told Petra, who hesitated, "That's mean, Lena." I said, "It's a joke. He'll laugh eventually." She didn't. Friday afternoon, I watched Garrett back out of our driveway. Steady, unhurried, as always. He never hurried. I had given him a fake address for a secondary parking lot to pick up extra coolers from Dom's truck. 34 miles away. Hardware store. No lot. By the time he realized, we would have our evening. I turned from the window before he reached the main road, heart pounding. The lake sparkled in the fading sun. Ren smiled at me, and suddenly all my careful planning felt like breathing underwater, exhilarating and dangerous. Petra and Dom made themselves absent with a subtle, uncomfortable grace that now I recognize as knowledge of impending disaster. Ren and I were alone, and in those hours, I felt invincible, untouchable, certain Garrett would never know. I was wrong again. That evening, the clock ticked. Shadows stretched across the porch, and I imagined Garrett somewhere lost, confused. But he wasn't lost. He was precise. He arrived at 7:02 p.m., the door closing behind him quietly, deliberately. No slam, no cry, no confrontation, just a door closing. That quiet was worse than any scream. I counted 11 minutes in the kitchen, heart hammering. I expected him to burst in, demand explanations, shatter the illusion. He didn't. He went to the bedroom and closed the door. I knocked. "Garrett, can we talk?" I asked. "Not tonight," he said. "Just that." "Not tonight." I felt a cold edge settle in my chest. He suspected something, I was sure, but still, calm, calculated. The man I had mocked for being dull was observing me in ways I hadn't anticipated. The rest of the weekend passed with a fragile, tense politeness. Garrett made coffee in the morning, spoke in measured tones, drove home Sunday afternoon without comment. I thought he might be venting, processing, figuring it out internally. But I was wrong again. He was preparing. I didn't know it yet, but the quiet, methodical man I had dismissed was already turning my life upside down. The lake house smelled of pine and water and the faint tang of late summer air. Ren and I moved through the evening like conspirators in a story we both knew was dangerous. Petra and Dom had vanished to their own corners, their polite absence like a spotlight on the chaos I was creating. I told myself again, this wasn't serious. 4 months. Just excitement. Just a door where there had been a wall. But every glance from Ren, every brush of his hand carried a thrill that I hadn't felt in years. Garrett had been gone for 2 hours and 43 minutes. I knew the exact time because I would later learn he tracked it meticulously, as he tracked everything. I tried to focus on the fire crackling in the hearth, the soft lapping of water against the dock, the gentle hush of the lake. My body ached with anticipation and fear. This wasn't impulsive, it was deliberate. Every heartbeat reminded me that I was crossing a line I could never uncross. And then the door opened. I assumed it was Petra and Dom returning from wherever they had gone, but no. Garrett stepped in, quiet, steady, unhurried as ever. He looked at me for a long, unreadable moment, then past me, searching. "Where's Wren?" he asked. "He went for a walk," I said, forcing nonchalance. "How long ago?" "About 20 minutes." "Okay," he said. Then he walked to the bedroom. The door closed behind him, softly. Not slammed, not loud, just closed. And in that soundless moment, the weight of every choice I had made came crashing down. I stood frozen in this kitchen. 11 minutes passed. I counted, whispered apologies to myself and the shadows. My mind raced with possibilities, defenses, excuses. He didn't yell. He didn't cry. He didn't demand an explanation. He didn't even call out. He just waited, observed, calculated. I knocked. "Garrett, can we talk?" "Not tonight." Just like that, the weekend shifted. The air changed. The excitement, the thrill, the sense of power I had felt melted into something colder, sharper. The man I had mocked as predictable, boring, methodical, was reading me like a blueprint, understanding every move before I made it. Wren sat quietly beside me, a small tremor in his hand betraying his own realization. We both knew the illusion was over. Morning came with the lake's reflection crisp and still. Garrett moved through the kitchen as if nothing had happened. Coffee poured, measured, words exchanged, minimal, polite. He left for home Sunday afternoon, calm, unshaken. I followed him with my eyes from the porch, expecting a storm of anger to come crashing through the car doors. But nothing came, only silence. I clung to the belief that he didn't know, that his composure meant ignorance. I was wrong. That evening, Wren whispered, "Lena, he's not going to find out, right?" I shook my head, though my stomach twisted. I didn't know. But deep down, the truth was beginning to settle. Control had slipped through my fingers. The smart, steady, meticulous man I had mocked had already set the wheels in motion. And I hadn't even realized the weekend's consequences had only just begun. Monday morning arrived like any other, crisp and ordinary. The sunlight spilled across the kitchen counter, warm and steady, oblivious to the storm about to hit. I woke at 7:30 a.m., expecting the quiet comfort of routine. Coffee was already made, the aroma filling the apartment. Garrett had left for work without a word, just as calm as ever. Nothing seemed out of place. I left for the grocery store around 10 a.m., running a quick errand. My debit card was declined on a $43 purchase. Confused, I called the bank from the parking lot. "There's a freeze on this account pending a legal hold," the representative said. I blinked, clutching the phone. "What legal hold?" "I can only confirm the account has been frozen. You'll need to contact the account holder of record." I was the account holder of record. I called Garrett. Second ring. Calm. Even voice. "Yes?" "Garrett, my card was declined. What's going on?" I asked. "I froze the accounts," he said. "All of them. Joint checking, joint savings, household account. I spoke with an attorney Sunday night. The freeze is legal and documented. You'll receive paperwork within 48 hours. "What are you doing?" I asked, my voice cracking. "I'm doing what needs to be done," he said. "I'd suggest arranging somewhere to stay for the next few weeks while the legal process moves forward. I'd suggest doing it today." I hung up, stunned. My heart pounded. Everything I thought I had controlled, the weekend, the secrets, even my home, slipped through my fingers. Back at the apartment, I called Wren. No answer. I called again. Still nothing. Panic began to coil in my chest. I called my sister, desperate. She picked up immediately. "Oh," she said, flat and quiet. Not surprise, just recognition. The kind that pierces without accusation. I drove home. Our house, the one Garrett and I had bought 4 years ago. My name on the mortgage, both of ours, on the deed. I had every right to be there. Yet when I entered, I was greeted not by the familiar warmth of home, but by a silence that smelled like impending ruin. The legal packet arrived Tuesday morning, earlier than promised. Divorce petition, temporary restraining order, exclusive occupancy documentation. The court had granted Garrett immediate control of the marital home, citing documented marital misconduct. I was ordered to vacate within 4 hours, allowed to take only personal belongings. I called Ren again. He answered this time. "Lena, my lease isn't being renewed," he said. Garrett owned the building through an LLC. I had never known, never asked, never cared. My sister didn't hesitate. She offered a pull-out couch, tea, wine. No judgment, just quiet support. For hours, I packed my life into 2 small bags. Clothes, documents, things that were mine alone. Every item I folded felt like a confession. Outside, the deputy watched. I did not look back. I did not look at the house. I only drove, moving further from everything I thought I controlled. 11 days later, the dimension I hadn't accounted for revealed itself. Fatigue, nausea, subtle, dismissible. A drugstore bathroom, 2 pink lines. I was pregnant. I called Garrett. No answer. Texted. 4 hours later, a response from his attorney. No personal words, only instructions for correspondence. Reality settled like cold cement. My life had fractured, and I was facing it alone. I realized for the first time that the man I had mocked as boring, predictable, stupid, had been quietly preparing for this collapse. For 11 years, Garrett had built an invisible structure, assets, investments, legal groundwork that could hold under weight I hadn't realized existed. And now I was learning what happens when you underestimate the patient, methodical kind of intelligence. 11 days after being forced from the house, I finally understood the full weight of what had happened. The fatigue I had blamed on stress was real and undeniable. 2 pink lines confirmed it. I was pregnant. The tiny life growing inside me was Garrett's, despite everything I had done. I called him. No answer. I texted. Urgent. Pleading. 4 hours later, the reply came, not from him, but from his attorney. No words of emotion. Only instructions for documentation and correspondence. Everything personal, filtered through legal channels. My heart sank. I hired a lawyer, Simone Grant, efficient, direct, sharp. She asked me one question I hadn't considered. How much do you know about his assets? Not much, I admitted. Problem, she said. It was a problem. The quiet, steady, boring man I had mocked had been building something invisible for 11 years, a network of LLCs, properties, investments, pensions, brokerage accounts. The lake house, the original home, 2 commercial properties, even the building Ren had been renting, all meticulously documented, all under his control. By the time I realized, the magnitude was staggering. Combined, the assets totaled approximately $2.3 million. He didn't flaunt it. He didn't need to. That was Garrett, methodical, invisible, patient. He didn't fight truths. He made sure they were undeniable, documented, indisputable. The paternity test confirmed June, my daughter, was his. Child support was calculated precisely, based on salary and asset income, every dollar accounted for. Garrett didn't contest it. He didn't hide. He simply ensured the truth had paperwork. Meanwhile, Ren lost his apartment, clients, and a semblance of stability. He called me in despair. "This is insane, Lena. Your husband is insane." I couldn't argue. He was prepared for the worst while hoping for the best. Every spreadsheet, every document, every tiny detail had been accounted for. And I had mocked him, called him a filing cabinet, and dismissed his intelligence as dullness. I moved into my own apartment, small, modest, temporary. For months, the pull-out couch at my sister's, then my rented 1-bedroom. June came every other weekend, picked up by Garrett precisely on time, returned the same. No drama, no words beyond logistical necessity, just methodical, steady consistency. Sitting in that apartment, watching June sleep, I realized what I had been blind to. Intelligence isn't always loud or fast or instinctive. Some intelligence is slow, patient, invisible. It reads documents, builds structures, waits. It prepares for failure quietly, hoping you never need to see the planning behind it. And that's what Garrett had done, all along. Every spreadsheet, every legal agreement, every calculated step, they weren't controlling me. They were holding weight for when life required it. I had assumed control, thought I was clever, and in doing so, I had been blind to the scaffolding beneath my feet. The pull-out couch, the deputy, the pregnancy test, The $340 in my wallet that Monday morning. These were the moments I called stupid, when in truth, they were the precise markers of preparedness. That's what smart looks like when it runs out of road. I called my sister one evening, after June was asleep, after the apartment had settled into quiet. She asked softly, "How are you doing?" "Figuring it out," I said. She nodded, uncorked a bottle of wine, and poured 2 glasses. "Maybe that's enough," she said. And maybe it was. I watched June sleep in the next room, the soft rise and fall of her chest a reminder of what mattered. Garrett's intelligence, steady and invisible, had built a framework strong enough to hold even when I tried to tear it down. I had learned, painfully, the difference between instinct and preparation, between perception and reality, between arrogance and true understanding. The story wasn't over, but the lessons were.